Ever wonder about life's mysteries and how what we may not be aware of could be affecting the outcomes of we here on Earth? With permission from Dr. Paul Leon Masters, founder of the University of Sedona, I'd like to share with you one of his mystical insights. Dr. Masters' mystical insights are based on over 50 years of consciousness research with thousands of his students. Today's subject's based on his conclusions after half a century of research. The subject is on living in and by mystical grace. Every day that we awaken from sleep, it is by grace. To take a breath and to be alive is not by an act of personal ego will, but because of grace. Some people may argue that their personal ego's wills cause them to survive some difficult times in their lives, but it was not. That was only the illusion. In truth, we survive by grace. It was not yet our cosmic time to surrender our physical existence in the ultimate cosmic scheme of things, where nothing is by chance or coincidence, and where all is perfectly orchestrated in a harmonious cosmic melody. So often the phrase, "by the grace of God," is used by people. But what is its meaning? Its obvious meaning is that something has happened or will happen because of universal presence, or God allowed it to happen or will allow it to happen. Grace could then be thought of as the will of God, not the personal ego's will. Having supreme or ultimate power over all things in human existence and even life itself. When atheists worship evolution as the chance coincidence explaining the origin and sustaining of life, that viewpoint is also, when mystically understood, an outcome of universal grace. There is a divine orchestration to life. Whether life showed up as a result of evolution, from beings from an outer space, or as another dimensional space, it matters not, because existence, no matter how it exists, is so by grace. To be conscious, or to have consciousness, is by grace. It is not by chance or coincidence, or again, it is by grace. Apart from being engrossed in mystical philosophy and psychology as to the nature and origin of one's life, the knowledge and knowing of the grace of the universe, universal presence, or God, is of utmost importance in living one's life. It can be the ultimate difference maker on how one's life is lived. When a person lives in a state of consciousness such that there is the awareness that all is taking place is by the grace of God, there is a peace in one's surface outer mind. More importantly, that peace in the outer mind level emanates from a deeper level of one's soul. If a prayer seems to work, it is not because of the prayer, but by grace. Or it worked because the prayer was in accord and harmony with the will of God. In other words, that's how everything would have turned out, whether the prayer had been given or not. The very same can be said of visualizations, affirmations, and all similar spiritual practices. What an insult to one's false personal ego identity. When one prays, visualizes, and so on, it is the false personal ego identity that's involved trying to affirm or beg God to do something. The personal ego thinks that it is doing something. This belief satisfies in many the illusionary importance of the personal ego in existence. On the other hand, one who is humble before God also may pray with all good intention and a result of love. Regardless, the outcome comes about as a result of grace or God's will. The Christ mind that was in Jesus also echoed the knowing of grace in the words, "Not my will, but thine be done." Or in the words, "Why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is God." If all is by grace, why then do prayer, affirmations, visualizations, and other such spiritual practices exist? Because through such practices, human consciousness reminds itself of the existence, presence, power of God and God's will, and ultimately that all is as a result of grace or the will of God. When someone passes on, it could be thought of as the grace of time for this lifetime, for the good of the soul on this earth plane has passed. And it is time for the good of the soul to, by grace, move on. By grace there is a greater glory that awaits a departing soul than that which can be known on this physical plane of existence. So if a person passes on, but another person has been praying for that person to stay physically present, remember that it is by grace the passing occurred for the good of the departing soul. Know that it was by grace that one experienced some life with that soul, that all that was felt in the heart emanated from the spiritual heart of love of God, and that the departing person had been a gift from God or by grace. Want to know more about what life is really about? Then always try to focus in on the bigger picture, the universal life process, or simply the will of God. Prayer, visualization, affirmations are good because they are reminders of God's presence and power to create life and be the source of our every breath. For again, all is by grace. What to do? If, in spite of what has been said, a person is still moved to pray, visualize, and affirm, do so. For every soul must follow or yield to his or her spiritual understanding and awareness, and along with being a reminder of grace, as previously mentioned, the following could occur. When tears are no more, or the need satisfied, there is a peace that comes when all the prayer that can be uttered at the time has been spoken, and only the presence of God remains. You may exhaust your mind through visualization and imaging, which is good, for in exhaustion there is a release and thus a turning over to God. You may, through repetitive affirmations, lose track of your words, and if they run into each other in meaningless fashion, there is nothing left to do but to let go and turn it over to God. All of these possibilities are a reminder of the limitation of a false personal ego sense of identity, and all are totally reliant on the power and grace of God. In love, I share with you the following words of mystical awareness as they were, by grace, gifted to me. I let go and let God, that by grace the greatest good has been done and already is. Dr. Masters. We will be presenting more of Dr. Masters' mystical insights on this station, KUOSFM.com, every week. For more free complimentary lectures and insights, click on to the University of Sedona's website, at universityofsedona.com.